Okay, good morning. Today is the 11th of December, the 21st of Kislev. Finished with Yutet and Kaf Kislev. We're coming up on Hanukkah next week, on Sunday night. And we're on page 2. And we're at almost in the middle.
Just 1 second, it's my brother who's in a bad spot. Yes, Steve, I'm learning. Is it emergency? Hello? Hello? Hello?
So we were left with the question.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have
It's okay, it's okay. I'm going to continue a little. And,
yeah, go ahead.
Maybe. So we were left with the question. So with all this pleasure that the soul has above, why would it come down? And we said come down could mean two things. It could mean, on the one hand, it could mean that it's forced to come down. Or it might mean that it willingly comes down. Or maybe it's forced to come down and then it decides it's a good idea. So we have to understand what is the motivation for this.
I'm learning. I'm in the middle of a
אמנם באמת, ברוך אלוקינו ברוך הוא הטוב והמיטיב, וברצונו הפשוט חפץ להיטיב לעמו ישראלי. But truthfully, blessed is Hashem, who is good and is beneficent. He does good. וברצונו הפשוט חפץ להיטיב לעמו ישראלי. And in truth, what he wants to do is do good. He wants to give goodness. So this whole descent of the soul is not something negative. It's got to be for some very good reason. And the way that the sages who were challenged by this question, the way they phrased the answer is that there is something in this world that cannot be obtained in any spiritual world. And the way that this is phrased is v'yerida zot tzorech aliyah, that this descent is for the purpose of a higher ascent. להעלותם עוד מעלה מעלה עד אין קץ בתכלית מצבם ומעמדם הראשון, to lift the souls of the Jewish people, of those who perform God's commandments. Really, Israeli means somebody who's from Israel. And you can either be born a Jew or you can convert to be a Jew. So, whoever wants to enter into this covenant with God, so he has an opportunity to use this lifetime to ascend much higher than his initial state. But you have to come down into this world for this to happen. I mean, what we're saying here is that this world is very valuable. It's so valuable, in fact, that the soul, which has infinite pleasure, is willing to come down and tolerate this world for 70, 80, 90 years for the benefit that comes from being here.
And again, the benefit?
He hasn't said yet.
Okay.
But just that this is the way that the setup. And in the language of the sages, this was said in the tractate of Avos, what they call the Ethics of the Fathers, in chapter 4, in the 17th Mishnah. יפה שעה אחת בתשובה ומעשים טובים בעולם הזה מכל חיי העולם הבא. The way they said it, the sages, is that it is better to have 1 hour of teshuvah, longing and returning to God, and good deeds in this world, than everything in the spiritual world. 1 hour of performing God's commandments here is worth more than the infinite world above.
And the wanting to return.
Right. The tshuva. There's a longing of the soul to return.
From
necessarily, right, exactly. So this is called
of return, true return.
Right. What is this? Tshuva out of love. Longing.
Yeah, longing.
I long for the infinite. I long for Hashem. I long for God.
Yes.
Why did he say from all the world to come? Meaning from the entire spiritual world. Again, the world to come here is not what will be once the Mashiach comes. He's talking here about the soul without a body. That's the world to come here.
Even after death.
Right.
Yes.
Before death and after death.
Well, yeah, right.
כיוון לכל מדרגות המעולות והנכבדות הנמצאים בעולמות הרוחניים מקום תפנוקי הנשמות. this covers every single type of spiritual pleasure that there is. Meaning he's not just talking about the lower paradise, the higher paradise. He's talking about everything. And that they enjoy there the splendor of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence, higher and higher.
You mean after the return?
When the soul is there, when the soul is in a spiritual world, it's enjoying the splendor of it, not a return. There's no return there.
Before the return. Yeah, right.
It's worth more than that.
Worth more than it was before.
Yeah.
So that's the added reward.
We haven't said, right. We haven't said yet what it is.
Right.
So the added reward comes from performing the commandments.
That's right.
כידוע לבאי שערי האריזה, as explained in the Arizal's writings, כולם אינן כדאי נגד שעה אחת בתשובה ומעשים טובים בעולם הזה. All that is not worth even 1 hour of tshuva, of longing and returning to God, and good deeds. Good deeds means mitzvot. That's the way that the sages said this. Right. In this world. והיינו כי גילוי אלוקות הנמשך על ידי איזו מצווה בעולם הזה. And this is because the revelation of godliness that comes down or is revealed through one mitzvah, hi ha'ola al kulana. It is greater than all that spiritual pleasure. ועודפת להן קץ ושיעור ותכלית על כל תענוגי חיי העולם הבא. And it is infinitely more purposeful than all the pleasure of the world to come. Now, one way of saying this, why is this? Why is this so different? Because there's no challenge there. In the spiritual world, there's no challenge. What's the challenge? There is none. You don't wake up in the morning. You don't go to sleep at night. So there's no problem waking up. No problem going to sleep. There's no body, so there's no illness. There's nothing going on. What are you doing? You're just gaining pleasure, which is wonderful. It is. It's infinite bliss. But it has none of the, what we call the trappings of reality. It's not real. There's something about it. Again, it is real because it is God.
Up there.
Right.
Yes.
It is real because it is basking in the divine presence. Right. But it's the way that we understand it after we've been in a body.
Yes.
The soul can't understand that before. Wow. You can't understand what it means to accomplish something against adversity. You can't understand what it means to overcome. You can't understand what it means to be challenged. You can't understand what it means to overcome suffering. You can't understand it. You can't understand what it means to make peace when there's animosity.
I'm understanding some of the Avodah now, which is bliss in this world.
Right.
There's a link.
In a certain sense, you're looking for that.
That's right.
Now, is it not right to look for bliss in this world? So someone would say,
how you do it.
Okay. So you said how you do it. But really the people who are really dedicated to serving God, they scorn that. You're right. They don't like it. No. They say that can't be your purpose in life. Yeah. That's not gonna bring you any closer to God. Yeah. Right. The sages though say that if you're already in this world, you're not allowed not to enjoy it. In fact, you're going to be punished for not enjoying. Meaning, if God does send you, they say it in simple terms, which were 2,000 years ago. If God sends you an exotic fruit, and you say, I don't eat anything that's blissful. I don't eat anything that's not the way to go either. But there were people who, again, in most religions, the understanding is that the more ascetic you are, meaning the less you enjoy this world, the more you're concentrated on the spiritual.
Yes.
We understand exactly the opposite. Yeah, right. The spiritual is where the bliss is.
Yeah.
So if you're an ascetic, you're not spiritual.
You're not, right.
This world is something else. It's entirely different. And it doesn't mean enjoy or not enjoy. It's not about that. It's about how much are you serving God. A person can serve God in many, many ways. But the thinking has to be that I'm doing commandments, that I'm doing what God commanded me. And why is this? מאופן יופי, והדרך הנ"ל, מאופן יופי קורת רוח העולם בא בחיי העולם הזה, הבשרים, ויותר מזה הרבה מאוד אין קץ ורחוק הערך ביניהם, כי דכתיב לכל תכלה ראיתי קץ, רחבה מצוותך מאוד. And we learn this from a verse in Psalms 119, 96, where he says, Lechol tichla ra'iti ketz. Every purpose has an end. Meaning, you set out to build a house, you finish building the house, you're done. You've fulfilled your purpose. You set out to do this, you set out to do that. What do we mean by that? We don't just mean that you're finished in the sense that you don't have to wake up tomorrow morning and keep building. We mean that the objective is limited. Meaning what comes out of this in the end? You don't build a house and get a neighborhood. You build one house, you get one house. You drive a car, you get from here to there. You don't suddenly fly in the air. But when we're talking about mitzvos, says King David, Rechava mitzvatcha me'od. Your mitzvos, your commandments, are much wider than that. What it means to say is that they contain much more than what you can just describe as a reason for the mitzvah. That's one of the reasons that we don't speak about the reasons of mitzvot. We don't speak about what is the reason that God told us to eat kosher. Because if you give a reason, it's like you gave a purpose. So once the purpose has been fulfilled, that's all the mitzvah is.
You're done.
But you're done anyway.
But I mean,
but you've captured the essence of what this is. And what he wants to say is, what King David wants to say is that there's no end to the purpose behind the mitzvah. There's always more to it. So if you give a reason, right, if you talk about a reward, if you talk about a reason, again, a reason doesn't have to necessarily be a reward. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. It could be a reward. But reason is like, what is the reasoning behind this? What's the rationale behind this? So, a mitzvah from the sages, we know what the rationale is. Like Hanukkah, we know the rationale. They told us. That's the difference between a mitzvah from the sages and the mitzvah from the Torah. When it comes to a mitzvah from the Torah, there's no end to what is the purpose of this. And again, it's because he contrasts it in this verse with the purpose of other things. Lechol tichla ra'iti ketz. Tichla is like tachlit. Everything that has a purpose has a limited purpose. But mitzvot, God's commandments, are different. Perush lekol and now he gives another interpretation. That's the pshat. Now he gives the Hasidic interpretation of this, because the word tichla, perush lekol minei klot hanefesh. Tichla doesn't just mean tachlit. Doesn't just mean what is the purpose. It also means the pleasure received from something. Meaning the things that the soul yearns for, the person yearns for. Perush lechol minei klot hanefesh. Everything that the soul, the psyche, yearns for. V'ta'anug neshamot, and even the pleasure of the souls. Masagatam be'elukut began Eden, yesh ketz v'guvun. There's an end to it. An end meaning again that it's limited in some way. Why? How could it, we just said that in the world to come there's no limits, but there is one limit there. She'ad kan megia sagata v'lo yoter. That when we say you bask in the divine presence, what we mean is that there's some understanding coming from it. It's not. What does it mean, basking in light when there's no light? If you're on the beach and you're basking in light, okay, so you understand what basking in light is. You understand what the light of the sun is. When we talk about a world without physicality, the world of the souls, what does it mean to bask in light? So what we mean by light there is understanding. So the soul is basking in the understanding of God. It's constantly understanding God. The person knows, hopefully. It's a very big deal. If a person doesn't know this, you need to show them this, because this is what being human is.
This is what it means. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
To be human.
To be human.
What does it mean to be human? So some people would say to be compassionate, to be this, to be that. All these things are true. But there's one quality that only a human being has. And if you don't enjoy this quality, you need to find a better teacher. You need to find someone who can make you enjoy this. Now, most people who learn have already experienced this, which is why they're learning. Unfortunately, learning is not a lifelong task outside of, even within Judaism, a small percentage of people. Even within Judaism, maybe 10% of people feel that learning is a lifelong task. Why is that unfortunate? Because that's where real pleasure comes from. Real, lasting, enduring pleasure. Understanding something. If a person's never felt the joy that comes from understanding something, then they're missing out on being human. They're literally missing out. They understand many, many things about life, and they understand many things about being a human being, but they're missing the pinnacle of joy, of what it means to really feel yourself expanding. You can go out, you can have the best meal in the world, and it's over, it's finished. That's what it means. Everything that you yearn for has an end. You long to see someone. Okay, once you see them, it's over. But when you understand something, that goes with you forever. And you can rekindle the joy of understanding anytime you remember what you understood. Every single time. And if you haven't experienced a teacher who does that to you, then in a certain sense you've been robbed of being human. So someone's taken from you the very basic experience of being human.
I mean, can that go into the secular too, in a sense?
Yes,
of course. I remember when I was 14 and I understood photosynthesis.
Of course.
I remember the moment. I remember where I was sitting in my room, and it clicked, and it was overwhelming.
Right. And every time you remember this,
yes, I don't remember photosynthesis, but I remember
the feeling
sensation of understanding.
Right. Okay, so
I hit it, and it was
so
awesome.
all the more so. Imagine that you could, especially when you learn Torah and you learn a page of Talmud,
yeah,
and you understand all the reasoning, and you can go over it in your mind,
yes,
and you can go over it very quickly.
yes.
You are filled with bliss constantly.
Even a Ramban in the
right, and you remember the Rashi, and you remember the Chumash,
something,
something that you understood.
Yes, yes.
There's nothing like that in the world.
Nothing.
And so many people have maybe a fleeting experience of this in their lives.
Really?
Because they don't have a lifelong task of learning.
You're right.
So they remember once that this happened, maybe.
Yeah.
But they don't think that this is something that can be experienced all the time. So they don't invest in it. And without question, the more you invest in learning, the more joy you receive. The deeper the comprehension becomes. So he says, that's what the souls are doing. That's what it means that they're basking in the light of God. That they're constantly understanding more. But there's a problem. What's the problem? The problem is that even in that, the mind is limited. So even a mind without a body is still limited in its understanding. It can only understand so much. What is he saying? He's saying that as much as the Torah is infinite, the Torah itself, the understanding you can gain from Torah and so on, it's infinite, your mind isn't. So maybe an infinite number of minds can gather infinite amount of bliss from the Torah. But each particular mind can only gather so much. Yeah. And here when we say a part of it, what we mean is that it's limited.
Yeah.
So that's really what it means, that the soul is a part of God above. Meaning that I have my chelik, I have my part in Torah.
So is that what we gain in this world?
So that's part of it, but if that's all you gain, so that's more of what you had above.
Before
so you didn't gain anything.
Before you came down.
Right, so you didn't gain anything. So what do you gain? No, because when you're above, you have it even more strongly, because there's no distractions. The body isn't bothering you.
No, but the understanding isn't there. We're saying the understanding.
No, the understanding. No, the understanding is there also.
It is.
It's a mind. It's like a mind. The soul is like a mind in that sense.
So do we gain from?
Yes. So what do we have here that we don't have there?
Yeah.
Our understanding here is in many ways more limited than it is above, because there's a lot more distraction and a lot harder to think straight. So what do we have here that we didn't have there? What we have here are the mitzvot, the practical mitzvot that we do. In other words, there let's take even the mitzvah of learning Torah. That there, the Torah is being like shined on you. Here you have to actually work for it.
Yeah.
It's actually difficult.
Yes, of course.
So, in a sense, you say, you're gaining much less because the bliss you have is much less, because your understanding is so much less, because you have all these distractions and problems. But the truth is, because it's a mitzvah, because it's a commandment from God, as he'll explain, and this whole book is based on this premise, The commandments of God are infinite. The act of performing the commandment for God, that is what introduces the limitlessness into your actions. Not that you can do an infinite action. You can't. You can't do a limited. But by doing the will of the infinite, what you're doing becomes infinite. The will that's infused in this is infinite. So even though you may understand much less, so I learn an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours a day, whatever it is, my soul above learns much quicker. But the hour or 2 or 5 that I do here, they are a commandment.
Yes.
It's not a commandment of the it just happens. It's just
I understand.
the fact that it's a commandment is what makes it different. The commanding aspect. That's the game changer.
But we're not dealing with the return. We're dealing with what happens here.
Here, everything
okay,
here.
I'm trying to leave
Above, there's nothing.
No.
There's nothing like that. There's
And
no
when
commandments.
And when we return,
There's no commandments. But meitim chofshi, when
do
after
we gain from what we did here?
yes, we do. Well, that we'll talk about.
That's essential, isn't it?
Can, of course, because otherwise,
Yeah, what's the use?
Because they're supposed to be elevated.
Yeah, right.
So yes, you're elevated. So again, even what they understand godliness, they perform learning Torah. It's not a mitzvah, but they learn Torah all the time. Yesh ketz v'gvul. There's an end to it. She'ad kan megia sagata v'lo yoter. This is as much as that soul can understand. This is its part in the Torah, and it cannot. For instance, in this world, how do people picture it? They have to picture it in some way. So they say, after you pass away, you go to the academies of the people whose books you learned here, of the souls whose books. What about before? Before you can't get anywhere else. Before the soul comes down into this world, it's not free to roam and go into someone else's academy. It's stuck in its own. Okay? So says Rashbi, this world is like a wedding. What do we mean by a wedding? You meet everyone. You can decide what base medrash you go into. You can decide which academy you're going to. You can decide what book you're going to learn. The moment you've decided that, you've stepped into the world of a different soul. You've stepped into, when it comes to Torah, it's exactly like that. You step into a different chelik of godliness, a different part of godliness, that only this soul perceives. No one else can perceive it. So the book that it wrote, that's why people who understand this, they have big libraries. And they want to read everything. Because only here can I step outside my own boundaries. And the chiddush is to understand someone else's, the big novelty is to be able to enter into someone else's understanding, which I can't do when I'm just a soul. Only a soul in a body has that freedom of meeting something else. Okay. So that's in terms of learning Torah. Okay, so we need to end. Let's just finish the sentence.
Now I understand why I stopped reading novels. I didn't used to read them, devour them. I read one novel in 30 years, purposely.
Why?
I don't want to get into there.
Into there.
Do you understand?
Yes, that's where you're going.
Yeah.
שזהו פירוש מאוד שעניינו מורה על בלתי הגבלה ושיעור כמו שכתוב באגרת הקודש. That's what it means, רחבה מצוותך מאוד. Your mitzvah is very wide. What we mean by very wide is there is no limit to it. There's no limit in the sense because I'm performing a mitzvah, I'm performing a commandment, and it allows me, like we said, for instance, in Talmud Torah, in learning Torah, to go to a different place in godliness, which I could not if I was only a soul.
So
Okay. So we'll continue.